It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together to share their testimony, to inspire hope. Folks, it is time for us to join our brothers and sisters as we answer the call. It is time to wake up the lions. And I have an absolute lion with me today, one of our young lions that I'm always talking about. I had the absolute blessing of having this gentleman on one of my other podcasts here recently. I invited him to come on here, and he's been just excited as all get out to come on here and talk about his relationship with Jesus. And I think it's just a blessing to have him on and for us to be able to have this conversation today. Folks, please welcome to the show the host of the hit podcast, Be That Guy, and also the founder of the coaching program by the same name. Please welcome DJ Logory to the show. DJ, how you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic today, Rory. Thank you for the introduction and beautiful pronunciation of the name.
All right, now I got to tell you, folks, I messed it up right before the show, and I actually knew what it was from the last show. So that's the kind of day I'm having. But
It's all right. We're starting off good, though. We're starting off good. I
we
love
got to
it.
start off good. So, brother, we could go into an awful lot of stuff, and you and I have talked about a lot of things. But let's
Yeah.
just take a minute, let everybody know who is DJ, what are you about, and how has God influenced your life, man?
So, what's DJ about? There's a couple things that I really believe a lot in. I believe in the fundamentals of human health. Eat, move, sleep. Eat like a professional, move like a professional, sleep like a professional. I believe in being of service to the world, being of value, of use. And I think that comes in many different shapes and sizes, whether that's volunteering at community organizations or churches, or the job you do, or the father or mother you are, the son or daughter you are, the employee, boss, coworker you are. I believe it's important to bring value to the world. I actually had a really cool conversation with a friend last night, and we were talking about, what was important to me. And I said, being of use, I think is important, right? Like, don't just like, what do you bring to the table is something that I often think a lot about. And I like to surround myself with people who bring value to the table. And I think that's important, to surround yourself with people like that. And so over the last, I would say, year or so, I think I've thought more about my value in what I'm trying to bring to the world, especially when it comes to the young men work that we're doing with Be That Guy. And last year, around maybe August of 2024, I was I'd made some really big decisions in my life, financial and business decisions that I was scared about. I had never not had an income really before. I had never gone into this much debt before, and I had to make these jumps in order to build Be That Guy and what it is today. And I'm still building it into what I truly believe that it can be. And around that time, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of, how am I going to do this? What should I do here? What path should I go down? Where should I really spend my time and my energy? And there was one day where I was looking out the window, probably for too long, and I looked up at the sky and I was like, "What's this God thing? Like what's this higher power that maybe I haven't accessed enough in my life, or leaned into enough?" I remember growing up, my family believed in God. My father's actually, he can rattle off Bible passages very, very accurately, and he emails me him all the time. He texts him all the time. So he's pretty good with his faith and his religion. And my mom is similar in that regard. And they raised us to believe in God, and we went to church and things like that. Yet I never fully understood, I think, the importance of it. I think it was more just something like, "Hey, make sure you brush your teeth before you go to bed," type of thing, right? That's kind of like what I thought it was. I didn't really lean into it as I've realized the value of leaning into it gives me. And so around this time, I was thinking more about God, and I was thinking more about faith, and how maybe I needed more of it in my life. And what I decided to do was, I remember around that time too, I'd watched a YouTube video. Um, the YouTube video was of people winning awards. So it was like celebrities, it was like athletes. And I remember the first two or three people, when they won their awards, the first person thing they thanked was God. and they thank God first. And I remember like watching them being like, man, every person thanks God. And I said, I don't think I would do that. I said, I think I would thank my family first. And I'm like, I think that's a problem. I said that feels a little weird in my body, and I didn't know why yet at that point. Um, so what I did that day was I reached out to about 10 churches in the Tampa area, and I emailed them, I called them, I DM'd them on Instagram. I just cast out the widest net, and I was like, which one's going to accept me, accept me into their congregation? And so I ended up receiving a message back from a young man named Sam Kiefer, and I'll say his name proudly because he's one of my really good friends now. And his family runs a church here called New Beginnings Christian Church in South Tampa. And Sam DM'd me and he said, hey, I saw you reached out. He's like, I would love to have you come down this Sunday. I could show you around the church and everything. And we can see if this is something that, you want to be a part of. And I was like, I'm in, dude. Like, this is awesome. So that Sunday I went down there. And to be honest, Rory, I was kind of nervous. I didn't know, like, I didn't want to walk in there and then like start throwing spirits at me or something. Like I didn't know like what I was kind of getting into. And I just was like, hey, like let's be vulnerable. Let's go in with an open mind. Let's see what it is. And Sam was just an absolute homie. He was such a cool guy, such a cool dude. He's like 24, 25 years old. And immediately came up to me. He's like, "You're DJ." I was like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And he was like, "Let me show you around." And so just felt totally at home, felt totally welcomed. And Sam's family was there. He introduced me to like their family and all these other people. And it just made me feel like I was receiving hugs and love from people I'd never met before. And that to me felt beautiful. That to me felt human in a world where we're so divided amongst all these things. It felt like the church was where everybody agreed. Um, and that made me feel good. And so I decided, I was like, all right, like I want to start going to church on Sundays. And then I started going, I downloaded the Bible app. And so like every morning I like listened to some little pieces of the Bible. I actually had one of the young men in our group, a while ago, he sent me a Bible. And he said, I want you to start reading this. He goes, you send us books to read. He goes, no, I'm sending you books to read. And I was like, all right, beautiful. So I have it right on my nightstand behind me. And so that's kind of how it all happened. And it's been probably one of the most profound changes in my life over the last year, I would say.
It's amazing when this thing gets into you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
You
it's the
know,
best personal development book of all time. That's
right on.
that's what I like to say.
I love that.
Hmm.
The you unpacked a lot. So let me go back just for a minute. Your father has this knowledge
Yeah.
of scripture and so on. So clearly you had some sort of upbringing in
Hmm.
this, right?
Yes.
Did it not take? Did you not understand the importance? Did they just allow you to make up your own mind? How'd that go
I
when you were growing up?
Yes, I think the last piece, right? Like I don't they were never pushing it very hard onto me. They were just like, "Hey, this is something that we personally believe in and we like to make a part of our lives, yet we ultimately want you to decide how you want to use this." And I remember going to vacation Bible school during the summers.
Right.
And to be honest, Rory, like I really did not like vacation Bible school because it felt like a big punishment to go
Hmm.
to like a school during the summer. And I was like, what did I do to deserve this? Like I thought like I don't want to go to school during the summer. Um, but so I think that probably left a bad idea in my head of like, what is this whole faith in church thing? But I remember like, I mean, I played sports my whole life, right? Before football games, we would always say team prayers, right? In both high school and college. Before I went to bed each night, I always prayed. And I never, in the beginning, it was kind of like, I'm just kind of talking to something higher than me. Like I didn't really know exactly what it was. And now I feel like I'm almost talking to someone I have a relationship with, right? Like when people talk about like, how is your relationship with God? Like I talk to God all the time. I've already talked to God this morning, right? And every time I go on my long runs in silence at the end, I like to talk to God too. And so I feel like it's more like this friend who's always with me. Like you're never really alone. right? You always have someone there to talk vulnerably to, which I think is very refreshing and I think healing. Um, and so that's kind of like they never really pushed it too hard on me. I think is really what I ended up realizing.
I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what my wife and I did with our kids.
Yeah.
Was we put it out there and we made sure that they had the knowledge and
Yeah.
the understanding, but it was still up to them, how far they wanted to take it. So,
Hmm.
I get that. I think that's been a pretty successful way to go with parents.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm glad to hear that. I know a
Hmm.
lot of the work that you do is sort of connecting kids with their parents too, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the what I've been realizing recently is a lot of the young men who are joining our group are young men of faith, or they want to become young men of faith, which I think is interesting because like so we build basically the simple way to kind of describe what we do, right? We help young men build healthier habits, right? When it comes to exercise, reading, and sleep. And then we have growth habits that these guys can kind of customize each week. So sometimes it might be job applications, college applications, volunteering at a church. Um, One of the things that I've found is that a lot of these young men say, "Hey, I want to grow a better relationship with God." And so I'll say, "Okay, so like what does that look like to you?" And they might say it's going to church each Sunday, or it's reading the Bible each day, or it's doing the Holy Bible app. And so what we'll actually do is work into their habit calendar. We'll actually work in, hey, every day at 8 a.m. for 5 minutes, you're going to do your Bible app, right? And then they check it off when they complete it. So then we'll come back, and after 5 days, they got about a half an hour of getting into the scripture and getting into the word. And it's like, all right, let's do that again, right? And so then we do that over a 12-week period, and these guys end up being exposed to a lot of different faith-based teachings. And that's kind of like we were talking about discipleship earlier. I think that's like where my discipleship is kind of starting to grow, right? A lot of these young men who come into our group, I'm asking them, hey, like, do you believe in God? Like, what are your beliefs? And most of them are like, yeah, like I believe in God. Like I want that to
Mm.
be a part of my life. So I think this work, the work that I'm doing with helping these young men with confidence and discipline, accountability, life direction, I think it's very attractive to young men of God, I'm really happy is kind of I'm very happy to see that turning into what it is.
Yeah. That's powerful right there.
Yeah.
And the way you're doing it is powerful also. You're not shoving it down everybody's throat,
Yeah.
or anything. But you're leading the way and raising the question.
Hmm.
That there's a lot of, especially young men, but there's a
Hmm.
lot of people out there, period, who they're not going to be the one to bring up God
Yeah.
because everybody's still a little bit afraid and nobody wants to offend and nobody wants to get the hate, you know what I mean, that's out there.
Yeah.
But when you bring it up, then what you do is you create a safe space for them to acknowledge and move into
Hmm.
if they choose. If they're like, no, it's really not my thing, is that something that you still work with? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I had one young man actually. He joined. He's in our December group, so we literally just started last week. And when we were initially talking, he had mentioned how he isn't like a huge believer of God, and I was like, I'm okay with that. I said, why not? Right? What do you believe in? Right? And he kind of gave his explanation, his perspective of his higher power and what he thinks it is. And it's cool because I believe in a saying, strong opinions loosely held. And I believe in that because there are certain things that I do believe in that I think are right. And until you provide yet I'm willing to listen to what you have to say, even if it's the complete opposite belief, right? Because maybe there's some really great credibility to it. Maybe you have some really great points to it. Um, Yet in order for me to change that strong opinion, I'm going to need a lot of research and a lot of credibility and a lot of experience and history to change it. Having said that, I'm still going to listen, right? So I asked him, I was like, what do you believe in? Like, why do you believe in that, right? And so we had this great little dialogue, um, based upon kind of his history and the things that I think he's experienced, and it made sense when he kind of shared it with me, and I'm like, I could see why you think that, right? And so it was a very respectful, I think, conversation, and now he's in our group and we're having a great time together.
Well, now that he's in the group, he gets the opportunity to see it with others,
Exactly. Right.
possibly pick
So
it up if he wants.
right. So other guys might start talking about it, right? And that's
Right.
where, you have the theory of weak ties and observational learning really starts to kick in. So then it's not me talking about it, it might be some other guys, right? So maybe there's some light influence that could happen there.
That's
Positive
huge.
influence. Yeah.
That's really huge. I
Mhm.
also, honestly, you're pretty good at this, man. I got to keep throwing out these kudos to you because I mean, you're like I don't know, 12 or something. It seems like when I'm talking to you sometimes, but you're not. You know what I mean? You're very accomplished at what you're doing. But you've got some very powerful subtleties.
Mm.
And when someone says, "Hey, God's really not my thing," or "I'm really not much of a believer," I think for from the Christian perspective, I think
Mhm.
the natural thing is to burst into "Why not?"
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with you? Type of thing almost is the reaction, even though you don't want it to be that way. And then we end up trying to change minds or
Yeah.
convert, right? And basically what you did was you turn the tables on it and you simply say, okay, well, then what do you believe in?
Hmm.
Because now it isn't really a question about God anymore. It's more a question about the individual. And do you
Yeah.
believe in anything? Where do you find your solace? Where do you get your power from?
Yeah.
That's powerful as heck to do it that way.
There's a week last week I was on a podcast and we were talking about when people give you negative feedback, right? So say you post a piece of content and somebody like really roasts you in the comments, and they were like, "How do you navigate that?" And I said, "Well, there's this great strategy that I like to use that's called align and build." And basically, instead of pushing back, so like our natural instinct, to your point, hey, why don't you believe in God? Right? Right. We push back.
Yeah.
And my business partner has this awesome exercise he does in his workshops where he'll have 100 people in front of him. He's doing his thing, and he'll ask one volunteer to stand up, and he'll say, "Put your hand up." And the person will put their hand up, and he'll push their hand, and they'll naturally push his hand back, and he'll be like, "Why are you doing that?" And they're like, "I have no idea why I'm pushing your hand back." And so it demonstrates like when people come at us naturally, right? Because our brain is wired to protect us from threat, we push back right out of protection. And so if you can fight that urge and you can do this, what I like to call align and build, you actually go with the person and you kind of take away all of their heat. And so so this guy's saying, "Hey, God really isn't my thing. I don't believe in it." And you say, "Oh, cool. So what do you believe in?" You just took all the heat away, and now he's actually talking about the thing that he believes in. When really, like deep down in my heart, right, there's probably a part of me that's like, "Dude, you got to believe in God." Right? Like, come on, man. Right? But I've conditioned myself enough times to know how to handle this scenario where it's like, okay, got it. So he said something that I might not necessarily agree with. So now let's align. Let's find the alignment. The alignment is great, sounds good. And you can use a positive word like yes, sounds good, great. Then you align with them and say, well, so what do you believe in? And then you kind of go with them. Right. And so that's a great strategy too for, like I was saying, if someone roast you in the comments, you actually agree with what they say and then offer up a question, and the person's like, you put them in a blender because they have no idea what, how to respond to that, right? If someone says, "Man, Rory has no idea what he's talking about," and then you say, "I know, I can't believe they let me do this. What do you think I should do next?" Right? Like they're not going to know any, they're going to be like, "What the heck is this guy doing?"
Exactly.
Right?
It's a great strategy. I love that.
Yeah.
I used to try things like that, but now I'm old and my patience is out the window. But no, that's another great way to do it.
Yeah.
It's an overused expression at this point, but it's still very important. You have to meet people where they are,
Yeah.
and that's
Hmm.
that's in anything, but especially with faith, because it's such a personal, deep-rooted
Yeah.
thing for folks. So,
Hmm.
you've been doing this for a while. How long have you been doing your coaching?
So me and my mentor, who became my business partner, our first meetings were when I was 21 years old. And so I'm 30 now. So it was actually 9 years ago was when we started our meetings. And then we built our parent company, Acres of Diamonds, around 2020. And that was kind of when I started doing the one-on-one coaching with guys. So about 5 years now, I've been doing the one-on-one stuff. And then I moved it into the whole Be That Guy community.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And in that time frame, I know that everything hasn't always been, unicorns and rainbows, for everybody. What sort of we all encounter spiritual warfare at some point in our lives. Sometimes we
Mhm.
recognize it. Sometimes we attribute things to that without it actually being that. Do you feel like you've encountered that in your life, whether it be personal or in the professional world?
When you say spiritual warfare, how do you define that?
Well, let me flip the question on you since I'm the host. How do you define that?
How do I define spirit? I mean, sounds like the coolest term I've ever heard in my life. Spiritual warfare. Um, I mean, I think spiritual. So when I hear the term warfare, I think of negativity. I think of violence or resistance.
Mhm.
And so spiritually, um, the first thing that's actually coming to mind is I heard I can't remember if this video was sent to me. It might have been sent to me actually. So one of the guys in our Be That Guy club, he's very faith-based. He'll send me content for our club calls that we have every couple of weeks, and he sends me a lot of stuff about God, and they're awesome. And I remember that he sent this one video that was this young kid who was explaining about how if God wants to make you, he's going to break you first.
Hmm.
And it was this little kid like talking um very eloquently. And the video was just like a an older gentleman just like listening to the audio of this little kid talking. And it was like if God wants to make you, he's going to break you first. He's going to strip you of everything. He's going to beat you down, and he's going to build you back up into the ultimate version of you. And I remember listening to that audio in my kitchen. I started to cry. Like literally just start like it hit me like a ton of bricks because I thought about last year when I had made those big financial decisions and for months and I'm still like on the cusp of getting out of all of the depths that I kind of dug myself into. I remember thinking to myself like I feel like I've messed up everything and I don't know how to get out of this. Like I literally do not have the knowledge right now on what to do. And I felt like I there was almost a part of me that was a little uh resentful, I think, of faith and spirituality because I was like, God, I'm trying so hard to do a good thing here, right? Like I'm trying to help young men get on the right path, build discipline, build direction. Like, why aren't you making this easier for me? Like that's I think what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Um, and I just realized that I'm not doing it because it's easy, right? Like I do like why do we work out? Because it's hard. Right? Like
Yeah.
my father tells me that all the time. I think it was what JFK. I hope I'm not missing this. We go to the moon because it's hard, right? Right? We do hard things because it makes us into better men and women, right? And that was what I when I started to really like meditate on it a little bit and get deeper into my actual faith over those couple of weeks and months. Um, I started to respect what God had done in my life. And the cool part about it is there's probably going to be some other points in my life in the future where I'm like at an even worse financial part, right? Or I'm like in even more pain. And I'm just going to be like, okay, God, like I got you. This really hurts right now. And I know you're breaking me a little bit to help build me into something more. And that's the new narrative that I've put on those valleys that we have at times in our lives, which will all, obviously we're all going to have them. Yet I think if you can change the story or the narrative that you put to those moments where it's like, God's breaking me down right now to just to build me up into some machine of a human that I don't even know is capable of yet. And that's like what I think about. So I know that was a long-winded answer to spiritual warfare, but that's what I got.
I love that. Honestly, you're spot on. It's great. I have kind of a theory on it. The Most folks who are trying to do good things, like you
Yeah.
are. You see the guy who's just laying there on the couch, getting fat, wasting his life, watching Netflix, drinking beer, and he just has the easiest life on the planet.
Yeah.
And you kind of start to resent things, and so
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up a little because that's a
Mhm.
common thing. And I think people feel so guilty then that the spiral just takes you over, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But when you see that,
100%.
I think it's important to realize that, the guy who's sitting there on the couch doing nothing, The devil is, or evil, or however you want to, call it, is
Yeah.
going to pave the way for him to stay on the couch
Hmm.
because he's not a threat.
Yeah.
And when men like you and I stand up and we want to do something to help, we want to do something to change, we want to do something to better ourselves, to better our families, take care of our children, things of this nature, we are absolutely a threat, especially if we're carrying the banner of God and walking with the
Oh yeah.
lions and doing it in his name. We're now an absolute threat to his very
Hmm.
existence. So we're
Hmm.
going to get every roadblock he can throw
Hmm.
in our path. And so, yes, it is a hard thing to
Yeah.
do. And I think if you're not encountering that, then you're probably on the wrong path,
Hmm. Yeah.
is kind of how I feel about it. I don't,
Yeah.
try that on for size. Let me know if that fits.
I love that. And I one of the things that I think about a lot too is this saying. The saying is called it's called send me. Send SENDME. Send me. And I say that to myself a lot when I feel like I'm taking the blunt of entrepreneurship, or I'm taking the blunt of trying to grow something that might be pretty new to the world, or might there might be a lot of people who might be trying to push it down because I'm trying to build strong, capable men, and they might want weak, malleable, influenceable men, if that's a
Hmm.
word, right? So one of the things I tell myself all the time as I say, send me. Like, I'm willing to get beat up. I'm willing to look like an idiot sometimes. I'm willing to put out content that might not land in the effort that maybe it will land one day. I'm willing to take the financial risk. Like, my mom had a really great comment a while ago. She said, I think it's so courageous that you gave up your 9 to 5 job that you were doing really well in and advancing in my career and are doing this instead. Like, it could have just been like like in all honesty, I could have way more money if I would have probably kept doing my 9 to 5 job with some of my side stuff. Like, I probably would have way more money. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I would rather pursue something of great significance to me in my heart and pursue something of substance to the world and get beat up in the first couple years, and then the compound effect kicks in of all the stuff people don't see in the shadows, and 3, 5, 10 years down the road, we're speaking on stages to thousands of people, we're in colleges, we're in universities, right? We got a whole movement here, and it's like we got it, right? Like, that almost brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it. It's like, send me. Like, I'm down to get beat up because I know where this is going to go.
I like that. Send me.
Send
You
me.
know,
Yeah.
the first guy through the wall always gets bloody,
Oh yeah.
always. But when you're willing to be that first guy through the wall, I mean, that's honestly that's where the real light comes in, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
That really is.
Thank you.
It's and it's rare also
Yeah.
to find people like that who are willing to lead, and
Yeah,
say, hey, I'm not worried about making that extra couple of bucks. I'm worried about doing what's right. It's tough.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
tough out there.
Mm,
But leading by example in that way is one of the things that makes you an effective leader. It's one of the things that makes other men want to follow you,
yeah.
and that's probably why your coaching business is doing so well.
It's starting to do a little bit better, right? We're moving in the right directions.
That's awesome. That and the fact that moms love you for some reason.
Yes. Yeah, that is funny. It's predominantly moms who reach out to help their sons, and I would love if fathers were more interested in this. And I think, it's an interesting dynamic, the mother relationship with the son versus the father relationship with the son. Um, so yeah, so it's typically moms.
Well, it's funny because on this program, about 70% of our listeners at this point are Christian moms.
Okay. Hello,
And
Christian moms.
given that age group that they're in, in that maybe 33, 35 to 55, a lot
Yeah.
of them have kids who
Yeah.
are, in the age group of the guys who you're working with.
Yeah.
And so, let me kind of give you the floor for a second. You're talking to these moms right now. You're talking about, what we all believe in, Christian,
Yeah.
belief and so on. Um, Give them a message about what you can do for their sons if they're looking for that kind of thing, because I think you're talking to your target market right now.
So I actually did made a podcast about this. It literally got released yesterday. So I'm going to reiterate what I said on this because I think it's such a profound thing to do with your son. So remember in 2008 when the stock market plummeted?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. My father is self-employed realtor, and my mother at the time, I can't, I think she was working in academia in somewhere. I remember when that happened, there was like a very, very small conversation about like what was going on financially in our household. And then my mother and father were completely fine, and they were like, "We're good. Like we're gonna everything's completely fine." And then I like forgot about it forever. A couple months ago, my mom called me and she was like, "Deej, do you remember when that happened?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Me and dad were scared out of our minds." She's like, that was such a financially uncertain time. We didn't know what to do because, we're paying all of our own stuff because dad's self-employed. And we tried to be strong for you guys, for me and my sister, so that you guys weren't nervous and weren't, scared about what's the future going to look like for us. Um, and so I had this great conversation with her about it, and I loved the vulnerability that she shared in that story. And what that did was it reminded me that my mom and my father are humans just like me. And I think sometimes as young men, as kids, we grow up and we think like our parents are like these superheroes. Like they can't do anything wrong. They are the people in charge of leading us and parenting us. And then we might get to a point where we are annoyed with our parents because we think we know everything, right? And because we've been in a house with them for 18 years and then we've been so emotionally connected to them and they've been there for everything. And so I realized in that moment that when my mom shared that vulnerability with me, it allowed for me to see my mom as a human who was a young girl at one point, who grew up, who married my father, who then had me and my sister, and then they tried their best to raise me and my sister. And I think they did a pretty damn good job. And I made this podcast because I think if a parent, and we'll use a mom, for example, for the moms that are listening, if you have a moment with your son, and I said, literally take your son out to dinner because you're going to get him in an environment that he wants, like go to the best restaurant you can, and say that you want to take him out to dinner because you want to share more about who you are and share a story of vulnerability with your son because it allows the opportunity for him to see you as not just his mom. It allows for him the opportunity to see you as a human being who is trying really hard to raise a good young man. So
Wow.
so that's like because when my mom did that, it like really had this impact on me. And I had a young man actually last week over Thanksgiving. His growth commitment, and he's in our program, his growth commitment for that week was he wanted to interview a couple of his family members and learn more about who they were, like deeply at their core. And so he asked them like, what was a story that, like, share a story with me that shows me who you really are. And so his grandma like really opened up, his uncle really opened up, and he came back and he was like, I've never looked at them as that. Like they were always just my uncle and my grandma, and now they're like these humans who've been through pain and adversity and challenge, and they've made it through. And I think it creates not only this appreciation for whether it's your parent, your mom you're doing this with. I think you end up respecting that person more, right? I think we respect people who've been through hard things, right? That guy sitting on the couch watching Netflix, drinking beer. Do I have respect for him? No. I want him to go do something with his life, right? I want to appreciate the things that he's bringing to the world. And so I think when you have that inner look into the humanness of your parents, I think it allows you the opportunity to respect them more. And then I think you kind of get proud of who they are. And you're like, you know what? Maybe I do want to figure my life out, right? Maybe not only do I want to do it maybe for myself, but I want to make them proud of me, right? Like that was some of my biggest stuff growing up is I just wanted my family to be proud of me, right? I wanted, if I put a jersey on and it said Logory on the back, I wanted my father to be like, yeah, like
Wow.
that's the stuff that fired me up.
I'm not sure I've ever heard that put that way. Um, do you find, I mean, I know you just did this podcast before, but I'm sure it's not the first time you've thought about it or talked about it. So, do you find or do you think that this isn't a little easier exercise for moms to do than dads?
Yes, I definitely do.
As a dad, I'm over here like gritting my teeth, but I got you.
Yes, tell your wife to try it with your sons. I think well actually so Rory, that's a really great point, right? I think this podcast is called Waking Up the Lions, right? I think the
Right.
Lions will do this. The Lions will do this.
Nice.
That's what I think. I think the Lions will do this, and then I think the moms will naturally be better at it because of the emotional relationship that I think moms have with sons.
Yeah.
Um, Yet the Lions will do it.
Hmm. All right. I appreciate you throwing the gauntlet down like that too. So that was slick. All right. This guy, folks, I'm telling you, we have a third interview scheduled. I'm not sure if we're going to make that one, but we'll just see how this goes for the rest of the time. DJ, I appreciate that. I really do because you're giving this from the son's perspective, which
Hmm.
we don't get to hear very often. You
Yeah,
get in an echo chamber of other dads, and
yeah.
we get in echo chambers of other moms, other parents, and we never get to hear from the side of the kids and
Hmm.
what they're thinking, about how to interact with their parents and what they wish they had. That's one of the things that sort of sparked my interest, in you and I talking the very first time was that you had this wherewithal to throw that out there.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this, since we're on Wake Up the Lions, all
Yeah.
right? The This business, you gave up a job making some pretty good money.
Yeah.
You got to work with someone you knew, but you became partners moving forward.
Hmm.
I mean, you made a living out of this, right?
Yeah.
You went through the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship with, I think anybody who's ever tried to do a business has an idea of what that means.
Oh
And it
yeah.
is not pretty, no matter
No.
how you cut it. Nobody has an easy road. Um, but you've done all this. Now, is this something that you just, wanted to do, you were attracted to, or at some point, do you feel like you've been called to do this work?
I believe in my heart that I've been called to do this. And when I was in when I was in second grade, I can't remember if I shared this story with you, and I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes version of it because this is actually one of the keynotes that I give is about these 2 days of my life. And so one of these days I had a really graphic injury to my left elbow when I was younger in second grade. I was dunking a basketball. I was running off of two ramps in my backyard, dunking a basketball. And on one of the attempts, I'd done it 1,000 times, Rory. I was a master at it. And my mother said, make sure you put a helmet on. And I was like, I don't need a helmet. And so I, on one of the attempts, I hung onto the rim for just a little bit too long. And then my momentum kind of swung me out. And so my feet kind of swung out. I let go of the rim and I fell about 8 feet down with my left arm perpendicular to the ground.
Hmm.
And so when I landed, my whole arm essentially flew out my left elbow, like shattered, snapped, really, really bad. And so very gruesome injury. I was rushed to the hospital, went into surgery. Long story short, when they took the cast off, I had these three huge pins that were in my corner of my elbow to keep my whole arm together, and my arm was about like the size of a quarter because I was in second grade. It was literally just bones.
Yeah.
And I remember when I looked down at it, I created this belief in my head that I was weak, like physically weak.
Hmm.
And I remember looking down at it as soon as I had like that burning belief in my head, I looked up at the ceiling because I didn't want to look at it anymore. And they like covered it up, and it changed my life forever because I thought I was like this physically weak guy. And so I started trying to disprove that belief. So I started exercising more, and because I thought that exercise was actually going to make me a stronger guy and disprove that belief. But one of the things that I also believed in was I'm a big football guy. I remember watching football as a younger guy, and the captains would walk out to do the coin toss at the 50-yard line. And the captains were these strong guys. They had these biceps, these necks, these quads. And I remember watching them and saying, oh, strength is associated with leadership. So the strong guys are the leaders. So I said, I want to be a strong guy. I need to be a leader. I need to somehow figure out what that is. And so I remembered trying to like ask my dad, like, Dad, how do leaders behave? Like, what do I need to do? And my father, being my greatest influence, he taught me about leadership. He taught me about, being kind and loving to your teammates while also being intense and being focused and finding the integration of those hard and soft skills. And so I remember I was the captain of my fourth grade football team, and then I was the captain of my sixth grade football team, and then my seventh, and then my eighth, and then all of my basketball teams. And so it became this thing to me where I want to be the captain, right? Like I like send me, right? I want to be the guy that if we win, it's the team's it's the team, right? We won it as a team. If we lost, it was my bad that I didn't lead good enough, right? Like that was very important to me. I thought it just was who I was at that point. And so when I went through college and had graduated, I think I felt lost because I felt like I wasn't leading anything anymore.
Hmm.
Right? I felt like I wasn't leading myself the way I knew I needed to lead myself, and I felt lost. Like you felt like a whole stripping of identity. Um, and I think what happened was I found it through Be That Guy again. Right? I found it through creating something that guys want to believe in and guys want to work towards. Um, Being that guy who can walk into any social situation and no matter what happens, you're good. Right? You're good with who you are. Right? You can look in the mirror and love what you see looking back at you. I had a young man yesterday, we were talking about that, and he's like, dude, that is the greatest feeling in the world. And I was like, have you ever had it? And he's like, I had it once. And I was like, tell me about it. And he literally, I could like, we were both almost tearing up. He's like, that's the secret. He's like, you just want to look in the mirror and love what you see. And I'm like, that's why I wanted to be that guy.
Wow. You've been working on this since you broke your elbow.
It's been a long, right? So like, I think this has been right. It's been a lifelong thing. And that's where like, God will break you literally to build you up into the man that you need to be.
Right. I love the story and explains a lot. It
Thank
really
you.
does. I do have to, back up just for a step. Have you ever told your dad what you just said? That he's the greatest influence in your life?
Yeah, I've hinted at it a couple times, and he, like I said, we have a weekly email that goes out to all of our community, typically moms, guys, everybody, and we send 3 emails a week, and my father responds to almost every single one. And he gives me his thoughts, and he says it gets him all fired up, and he says, "Man, I need to go lift some weights, or go play some drums, or go sell a house." Like he'll say something like that. And so there has been a couple times where he's actually sent me emails that are really deep, and he's just, appreciating what I'm doing and how it's an honor to be his father. And I save all of them because I told him one day, and I'll try to say this without crying. I said, I'm going to save these emails and I'm going to put them in a presentation one day, and I'm going to show these to thousands of guys. And hopefully there's fathers in the stands. And I said, and I'm going to show them what a good dad does.
Wow, man. That's that's something. Well, so you've sort of told him,
Yeah.
and
So it's I've been slowly dripping it to him, right? Slowly letting it out, and I have some really cool visions about how I want to bring him into be that guy in some capacity, because of the influence that he's had on me.
well, make sure he listens to this podcast then, will you?
Yeah, I will.
As one dad, as a dad myself, because that's one of the most powerful things in the world that a father can hear
Hmm.
would be his son actually saying what you just said. So don't let that moment go by. That's
Yes, sir.
incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Incredibly cool. And, awesome things like that happen on this podcast. I don't know
Yeah.
how or why. People have revelations about things they've never thought of before. They say things they've never said before. I don't really understand what it is, except that God told me to do this for absolutely no reason. And I obeyed,
Yeah.
and now I have incredible people like yourself come on here and say things like that. that could
Mm.
change somebody else's life. So I appreciate it. I know your dad will too.
Mhm.
And man, all right. DJ, as always, you're a fantastic guest, man. You really are. I mean, I could not have you on enough podcasts, to be honest. So I appreciate everything you brought today, sharing your story the way that you have. I have one more question for you, but let's make sure we get some contact information out because these moms are going to want to get in contact with you about how do I get this relationship going with my son like that. So hit it. How does everybody reach you?
So, if you're on Instagram, Instagram is typically the platform that I'm most active on. You can just go, my Instagram is just at DJ Logory, DJLogory. And if you want to go check out our website, it's bethatguyclub.com. So we've broken up the website to basically you go to the homepage, and if you're a mom, you click there. If you're a guy, you click there. So you can actually go on there, check out all like the mom language stuff. And then if you're interested in your son being a part of it, you can actually send the guy page to your son as well. So then he can read through it and see if it's something that he wants to learn more about too. So bethatguyclub.com is that website, and then Instagram at DJ Logory, Logory.
Love it. And you do actually have separate pages on the website. I've seen it.
Yeah.
One for
Yeah.
the mom, one for the kid. So, and
Yeah.
if you're a dad, stop crying. You shouldn't need your own page for crying out loud. All right. Send it to your son and
I
buck
think I
up.
say if you're like a parent, I think I said parent, and I do. It's funny. Like I will literally like make podcasts sometimes, and I'll just talk to moms, and I'm like, I got to remember, like there is another parent, right? Like there are fathers out there who might be interested in this. So I apologize if I do get biased, but hey, the data doesn't lie. I would say out of the hundred, 100 calls that I would have, 99 of them are literally moms. Like it literally might be one of a father.
Yeah. Don't apologize for that, man. Marketing's marketing.
It's marketing, right? So
All right.
shout out to all the Christian moms who are listening to this. I appreciate you guys.
I love that. Let me hit you one last thing, one last thought here. There are a lot of, especially young men right now, I think,
Mhm.
that are sort of hit at that crossroads. They're hearing, the movements that are going on. They're hearing a lot of things. They're
Mhm.
seeing things on social media. There's plenty of hate, but there's more strength
Mhm.
in the Christian, movement than really ever before in my lifetime. And
Mhm.
that's a lot of years. So I think there's a lot of young men out there who are going, well, I feel pulled this way, but then, there's this. Um, if somebody's trying to sort of find themselves, if they're trying to make that first step,
Mhm.
I want to be better. I want to do more. I'm not real sure what I believe. Is there any advice that you, as someone who's kind of been through this yourself,
Mhm.
can give them to just maybe get them moving? It's not going to fix it, but just get them started.
Yeah. So I know in the beginning I said, I'm a big proponent of the fundamentals, eat, move, sleep. I think a lot of your life is determined based upon that. Um, I would also say one of the things that I've thought about is this idea called the life theater. And this is something that I think I started to do when I needed some help. I started to think about if my family could see how I behave on a daily basis, would they be proud of me? And if I couldn't answer that question with yes, then I needed to change something because I couldn't deal with that. And so that's one of the things that I've never really talked to guys honestly about that. It's typically because typically we're getting into the nitty-gritty of like how you spend your time each day, right? This is a little
Mhm.
bit more of like a thought that they might be able to use. Um, think about like, if you are sleeping in, if you don't have a job, if you don't know what your future holds, like, would your family be proud of the things you're doing to improve your life, right? If you are even improving your life. Um, and and I think the honest truth is, at the end of the day, you have to care. The guy has to care. Um, one of the things I have in my closet, so I have like a vision board in my closet. And one of the things is it's a boxer, and he's just looking, and he's about to like punch, and the caption is "No one cares." And I think about that a lot because it's like when I don't want to get out of my bed, no one cares if I do or don't, but I'm gonna care, right? Like eventually I'm gonna care. And so I think as a young man, right, if you're listening to this, thinking about like one day we're gonna die. right? One day we're not going to be here. So care now. Like care now about who you are, about your physical appearance, about your mental intellect, your intellectual rigor, right? Care about who you are and what you're bringing to the world, um, because you don't need an overhaul. You just need some small changes, and then we repeat those changes over a long enough time horizon, and you got it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, brother. Appreciate that actionable advice. I expected nothing less. So, all right. Folks, DJ Logory, the founder of the movement and the host of the hit podcast, Be That Guy. DJ, thank you, man, for coming on today, sharing everything you did, talking about your faith, and leading the
Yeah.
way for others to do the same. You are one of the young lions, brother. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much, Roy. I appreciate you, man.
Folks, it is time. It's time to wake up the lions.
Yeah.
Absolutely, positively time. And more than that, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and your sisters and let them hear you roar. The world is ready. You're ready. You just have to believe it.